everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Appreciate you joining us here for part 3 of our series, Who You're Going to See. We've had great feedback on the first 2. If you remember, Charles kicked this off with referrals. Then Emin last week did a really nice thing on how he's working with bankers, CPAs, real estate agents, and lawyers to really develop new business. Great feedback on that one also. So today we have our very own Ed Ledford is going to be joining us and talking through centers of influence. And I just see Luis Garcia's smiling face up there. Make sure you join us next week. How you doing, Luis? Where he's been really doing some fascinating things with technology that has really kind of helped take his practice to the next level. In fact, several of his agents also. So it's pretty exciting stuff. In fact, he's introduced FFP to a lot of those tools, and we are also looking at that just to see how that fits in with us. So anyway, make sure you join us next week also for that. But anyway, back to this week, Ed, I'll just hand it over to you. And looking forward to the presentation.
Thanks, Ira, and welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Yeah, we've had a really terrific series. Last week, Emin really did a nice job of focusing on really cultivating centers of influence out of other professional practices, being the CPAs, the P&C shops, et cetera, and had some really valuable input for you there. And I think one of the real messages was that's something you need to get started on now, because it does take time to build up the trust. They're very familiar with you and who you are, what you do, but there's also an awful lot of insurance agents that are out there talking to the CPAs, the attorneys, et cetera, trying to get referrals for their businesses. I'm going to take a little different tack on the centers of influence approach with a different group of people, and one I think you could have a little quicker impact on by using some of the tools that we have available through FFP and carrier partners like Foresters with those member benefits. Basically, where you'll have something immediately to give to someone in return for that center of influence approach. So that'll be kind of the focus of my program here. I will start off with what is a center of influence. Those are people who influence the communities you're trying to target, your customers, your personas, whoever they hang out with. And that came from a very interesting article that I read on centers of influence by the Executive Outliers. Let's kind of examine what that's all about. Many of you have developed your business, your practice around, could be an experience, a prior occupation that you had, could be a club that you're a member of, a church that you're a member of. All of those areas are, quote unquote, where those common customers that you're looking for hang out. So I think the first thing that you really want to do is determine who is your target market. And some of the more popular ones that we run into, we have a lot of our producers working with young families. We have a lot of producers working with seniors, and small business owners are very, very focused among many of your practices. I think it's most important that you really refine your definition to align with your interests and what your expertise is. So for instance, a simple example is, many of you started marketing Medicare Sup and Med Advantage plans. It was a very simple transition to get over to put final expense in to that same group of customers because of all the same needs. So you can ultimately develop a significant expertise that is of value and relevant to that target market. Others, a lot of folks that we've met in the business, they'll target young families because that's what they have, is young families themselves. So whether it's through their school or church or club affiliations, they've been able to cultivate a client base made up predominantly of young families. And of course, small business owners, same type approach. So my point is that you should really target who it is that you want to do business with first, and then look to identify who that center of influence might be that can refer you clients. And I've got some examples up here on the slide. You know, if you're dealing with young families, it might be the common sports leagues that your kids play in, whether that's soccer or baseball or softball, whatever it might be. It might be band club, it might be schools that they go to, et cetera. And then once you identify what those common interests are, you know, your next step obviously is going to be looking towards who is it that has an influence or is in a leadership position or viewed favorably, you know, within that group. And for instance, in the school type focus, it might be somebody that's on the PTA, been very active with the PTA association. You know, in the sports leagues, it might be whoever in your community is responsible for putting together the soccer leagues. And I know where I live, you know, the soccer and the basketball and the baseball, softball programs. I mean, they have thousands of kids that are involved in all those things, and literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families that come together. And there are people in leadership roles that have access to who those folks are. In the senior market, you know, it might be a common church or a club or a particular charity that they support. They're all in your community also. Small business owners, you know, I recommend you really get focused in on who you're familiar with. And the more you understand the business that they're in, the more relevant the advice and counsel can be. And so whether that's dentists or web designers or dry cleaners or landscapers, they all have common areas and common resources that they use to help them with their core business. And again, developing that relationship with those folks is a way to get access into those markets. So there's a couple of things that I want to put out here as really key phrases that whichever group you're working with, I find these to be very, very significantly important. One is, and I'll use an example if I'm talking to young families or families with high school students or someone that's a leader in that group, again, that head of the PTA, that says, you know, I'm working with a company that is committing to having a footprint in our community. And they follow it up with, and therefore, they're making available competitive scholarships to students within our community. Would you be interested in learning more about how that program might work? Or, you know, I'm looking at something from using some of the foresters member benefits. And I might say, you know, I'm working with a company that's committed to having a footprint in our community, and they're making grants available to folks in our community. And I noticed that you're very actively, or your spouse is very actively involved with fill in the blank, whether it's a women's shelter, a senior resource center, a ball field, the parks, whatever it might be. That whole working with a company that's committed to having a footprint in our community is a great reason that differentiates you from the other folks that are out there competing with you. The other thing I like to use, if I'm using a concept that's important, is I just came back from a training workshop where we put, you might use Kaizen in the small business community, and where we studied and learned about a program that helps you really use leverage to turbocharge your retirement program. And I thought of you immediately as a leader in our community that might benefit from that. Now, you might make that pitch, or you know, over a lunch with one of the club members. It might be you know, the Lions Club in town has an awful lot of support from business owners. It could be a church group. It could be a golf club for all practical purposes. But again, finding that person and having the right approach to why it's in their best interest to sit down with you is critically important. And I like these two approaches to be able to say there's something different that I'm doing that you might be interested in. So who is it that we might be really looking for? Emmett spoke last week about the CPAs and attorneys and PNC agencies, but there's also association leaders, social service leaders, church leaders. And it doesn't have to be the pastor in a church. It can be somebody that's just actively involved in the financial arena, or involved with talking to the seniors, managing or spearheading one of the senior clubs that most churches would have available. So you come up with who is that person in the sports leagues. Obviously, I like to get in front of, with Carmel, we call it the Dad's Club. Well, there's a dad and there's a board of director dads that are in charge of all those services and have all the contacts available, and they're very approachable, particularly when I tell them that, we've got a company that I'm working with that wants to have a footprint in this community, and they make monies available for things like fixing up your ball fields, or for helping enhance whatever that project might be that your kids want to get, you want your kids to get involved with. So with that right approach, it's very easy to get in front of them. If you're using the sports league leaders, obviously most of them have kids too that are involved in the sports leagues. So all of those extra member benefits are good reasons to be able to get involved. The Kaizen strategy is something that's very, very unique and can be very appealing to business owners of all kinds. And again, I talk about you're talking about using leverage to really turbocharge and get the most out of your personal retirement program. So picking the right ideas, and we have a good selection of them between the Kaizen program as well as all the member benefits of Foresters. Those are tools that are at your disposal. So how do you get them engaged? What is kind of that next step? Well, I think this whole idea of doing a joint event with a relevant speaker is probably the simplest and most effective way to try and get in front of them. And I'll use an example for you. Most of you that know me know I'm a very avid golfer. I know the golf community. I belong to several different golf clubs. I don't mean country clubs. I mean just golf association clubs. And one thing golfers generally have in common, if you're in the right arena of them, is they've got a passion for learning how to get better at golf. So I take an idea like I'll go to a teaching professional and be able to say, all right, here's what I'd like you to do. I'm going to get a dozen people together that are interested in improving their golf game. I'm going to give you a chance to pitch your program, where they would, he'd have something to gain by getting new people to work with his lessons, and I'll have something to gain. So I'm going to tell him, look, what we really want you to do is we want you to give a mini 20-minute lesson, and I'm going to invite the folks over. I'm going to buy coffee and donuts in the morning over at the golf course. You're going to give them all, your philosophy on teaching, a little tip or two on how they can get better, and I'm going to do a 10-minute commercial on what I do and why I think it could be of value to them. And it would probably key around with my golf club group, the Kaizen strategy, saying that, I'm working with a company who wants to have a major footprint. They have a very unique strategy that allows you to use leverage to turbocharge your retirement and really maximize it. We create 60 to 70% more retirement income for you without you having to take out any personal loans at all. If you're interested, see me. So I'm going to do a little commercial on the side. I'm going to bring a speaker of interest to them. You can do that in any of these arenas. It might be, let's say your church group. Well, here's some resources. Local and state government leaders, they are, or a community agency type head, they're always looking to get their message out in front of people that you can bring together. So basically, you get to the head of that organization, you say, hey, I'd like to sponsor XYZ, who's our local congressman, state congressman, to come in and talk about what we might do with the federal monies that are going to be spread around the state of Indiana. It would probably be very interesting for you and your folks to hear. It'd probably take 40 minutes. If I do that through my church group, they've already got the meeting room. My expense is basically some pastries to bring in for the talk. We've let the government, the state representative come in and speak to them about what their agenda is, what it's going to mean for our community. And again, I do my 10-15 minute commercial on what I do and how I might help them. Another approach, doing a philanthropic event in the community. And again, I'm looking to use resources like Foresters has the community grants, although I might even just do one, and sponsor it myself as my agency, or can do it jointly with Foresters to do something that's going to help the community. And it might be something as simple as doing a local theater company to come into one of the schools and do a youth-oriented play. They'll want to do that. It costs a few bucks to do it, but at the same time, we're going to do something really nice for the parents of those young kids. I'm going to talk about the company I work with that likes to have a footprint in the community and has all kinds of extra benefits for your school and your community. And here it is. This is what I do for a living. If you're interested in getting together, bang, there's somebody in the back of the room to do this. Another great resource, again, this can work very well with the senior community, is a social media expert or somebody to give them some ideas and some help on how they can get engaged, with their grandkids, etc. So as far as what that joint event with a relevant speaker is, those are just a few ideas. If you let your creativity and your connections work, I know, in my community, there's quite a few folks that are sports oriented, either were professionals in the area or were coaches or were well-known names within the college ranks here in Indiana. And again, arranging for them to be able to come in as a guest speaker for a group is a very, very solid way to help with this develop and cultivate the center of influence. Little different spin than what you heard from Emin last week. But again, I'm using a slightly different audience that's a little more local. And, your whole goal of this, by the way, is to become a resource, a dependable, reliable, creative resource for whatever group that you're trying to work with. For those of you that are looking in that business marketplace, a slightly different approach to that same thing. You might, let's say you like to work with medical professionals, nurses. We'll pick that one as an anything. Well, again, there are resources that you can tap into that would love to get in front of a group of nurses, where again they can come in and provide relevant data. It might be regarding the COVID outbreaks, to bring in one of the individuals that is amongst your government's leadership team. They look for opportunities like this. And again, if you can be the coordinator, you can get in front of the target audiences that you create. So just a few ideas on how to really cultivate those centers of influence. The things that I would say are your biggest tools. One, do something memorable where they're going to remember who did this, and they're going to come back to you and say, that's great, and is there anybody else that you can bring in? Or you may ask amongst them, who would they be interested in hearing about? Again, the tools that I think are the most valuable things that you have to give that are available as resources from us, the member benefits, the scholarships, the Law Assure, the young family benefits, community grants that are available, and of course, leveraged retirement benefits. So those are some ideas on networking. I have one other approach that I want to talk to you about here briefly, and that's this old walking and talking to cultivate your center of influence. And that's cultivating yourself as a center of influence. You should always be networking. And I want to take a minute here and flip you over to a tool that we have available for you at FFP. Let me get this. Okay, so this is the FFP website. We're going to get you over to a tool called the Virtual Sales Assistant. I'll show you how to get in there in a moment after I show you what this tool can do for you and your business. Let me sign in here. This is my Virtual Sales Assistant.
Ed, we're still just seeing your slides. We're not seeing your website.
Okay, let me get over here.
I think you'd have to stop sharing and go and reshare and choose your website there. While you're doing that, I think everybody's aware. If not, we are right in the middle of the scholarship program. So that has kicked off at Foresters, goes through the end of February. Keep in mind that you can actually write a case on the end of February and still be able to apply. So it's they don't have to be a member for a certain period of time. They just have to be a member. So and also, if you haven't seen, Foresters has enhanced that program now. They've increased it to 300 scholarships a year, and they took it from an $8,000 scholarship up to a $10,000 scholarship. So it's that program is getting stronger as we speak. So just keep that in mind. It's always a good time of year to reach out to your clients and remind them what's going on there. So another opportunity. Anyway, looks like we're seeing you now, Ed.
You see okay, so this is the Virtual Sales Assistant website, and I've got something on here called Life Guides. We haven't talked about these in a while, but this is when you're walking and talking, and you're basically you run into somebody, or you meet them on a plane, or you see somebody you haven't seen in a couple of years, and it's, hey, I haven't seen you in 2 years, Ira. What's been going on? Well, Ira says, we've got a grandchild now that we're taking care of during the day. And I say, well, that's fabulous. Would you mind if I sent you some information about how to start now to start college funding for your grandchild? Would that be of interest to you? And then I go to these life guides over here, and there are a whole bunch of different ones here. I hope you can see them. I'll see if I can enlarge them a little bit. But managing your life, marriage and money, paying for college, money doesn't grow on trees, dealing with the divorce, what do you do if you lose your job? These are all generic things to do and content information that you can provide to people. So if we were looking at college funding for somebody, I go over here and hit this paying for college, I submit it. And what it would do is it's going to come up with, I put the client's name in, obviously, so I can personalize it. It comes up, and I'm just going to view it right now so you can see what type of professional piece. It comes up with this life guide, paying for college, if you want your kids to have a college education. Now, my subscription means it puts my information on this piece. I can print it out, or I can email it, and you can see it's about a 19-page summary of all the things about college costs. And as you saw from the menu, they have them for all kinds of things. So whatever somebody's happened in their life recently, whether it's a parental issue, whether it's somebody died, somebody was born, somebody's getting married, somebody's getting divorced, and on and on and on, there's a life guide that I can help provide them with some information. There is nothing related to any product nor any particular company. This is just all the rules and guidelines and how you pay for college and what it's going to cost, et cetera, right on down through. So this is a tool that comes from me. It's branded by me, obviously. The whole piece, if you're interested in this, I'd be happy to provide you with more information. But if you go to the FFP website, under marketing tools, you're going to see here is the virtual assistant. And you can see the price is $19.95 a month. So it is next to nothing. You can't find it at a better price other than FFP's negotiated preferred provider. And there's a lot of tools, a lot of resource in there. For those of you that are getting involved in the social media, There's a lot of good information that you can use as a response to different requests. So it's an old friend of ours, virtual sales assistant, and one that's still very effective in a number of different areas. So wanted to share that one with you too, as kind of your walking and talking information to go with the rest of the Center of Influence ideas. And Ira, with that, that's kind of a summary of what we wanted to share today.
Your timing is impeccable there, Ed. It's we've got about a minute to go, so no, good stuff. Appreciate you taking us through that. Excuse me. So just again, I want to remind everybody that please join us next week. I think you're going to find what Luis Garcia has been working on. Well, Luis, I think you've been working on this just over a year now, right? So
yes,
a little bit.
Yeah. November it turned a year old.
November turned a year old. Anyway, it's he has come up with a very customized CRM system that I don't even want to call it a CRM system because it does so much more than that. But let's just say it's generating leads and sales for him and his agents as we speak. So it's a very good little tool. I think you'll get a lot out of it. Again, as I mentioned early on, FFP, we got so interested in what Luis was doing that we sat down with him, tried to learn a little bit, and we are also exploring with that tool right now. And early indications are that it's going to work out for several people. So anyway, join us next week just to kind of get a feel for that. Very interesting stuff. So, and that will, I guess, Ed, that wraps up our series for who you're going to see next week. That's correct. That's the last episode, and
correct.
I think then we have the holidays coming up, and we'll kick it off again strong next year, right?
Yeah, we'll get started. I think our plan next year is how to set up your business to be most profitable to you will be our first kickoff. So very relevant early in the year. But join us next week, and I promise you that you'll truly enjoy and get a lot out of what Luis has been being very successful with.
Yeah, hopefully we can tie it all in and get ready for the holidays and get ready to kick off 2022 with the bang.
There you go. All right. See you, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks all.